So what is involved in title work when buying a home? Let's shift gears into the title process. Tell the buyer, tell the consumer what is involved in that process.
Yep. Well, I guess the first question is, why do we need a title attorney at all? The reason is the buyer wants to make sure that the house that they're buying is owned by the seller that's selling it to them, number one. So we want to make sure the ownership is clear. We want to clarify ownership. In addition, we want to make sure that they're passing title, which is what we call in the industry free and clear. We want to make sure that there's no liens, there's no judgments, there's no encumbrances, there's no boundary disputes, there's no conflicts or claims against the property or adverse ownership claims or anything like that. So that's where we as title attorneys come in. We make sure that your buyer is buying exactly what they think they're buying. And they won't have any problems down the road after they get to the closing table and walk away. And so that leads to, the need for title insurance.
Right. So if someone was to buy just a raw piece of land, do they still need it?
Absolutely.
Why?
Well, title insurance is going to insure the dollars that you just spent. And so if one of your investors just wants to buy 5 acres in Prairieville, they still want to make sure that the seller of the 5 acres is the owner of the 5 acres. And the only way they'll know that is through a title examination of the documents at the courthouse. And then if they want a sense of security, they'll purchase title insurance. That insures them against any outside claims. So whether it's grass or a parking lot or a $10 million building, you're still going to want title insurance to insure the money you've spent on this piece of property to make sure it's yours and make sure you own it free and clear.
And that goes for new construction as well.
So
it's the dirt underneath the home that you own. So
even more so for new construction, because new construction hasn't been there as long, and so potential problems haven't yet had a chance to come up. And so people ask all the time, do I still need to get title insurance? It's a brand new house. It's only been owned by the developer. That's not technically true, because before the developer owned it, some family owned it, the land. Before that family, another family, and before that family, and at some point the U.S. government owned it. So you're talking about, the land's not new. The land's been here longer than you and I and our great-grandfathers. And so, when we run title, we do go back to a sufficient time period to make sure there's been no problems and no conflicts, and just verify the ownership and the clarity of title.
Yeah, I can tell you this, I would never buy a piece of property without title insurance. It's a one-time factor, right? One-time cost.
It's a one-time premium.
Got it.
Exactly. It's a one-time premium. It covers you as long as you're the owner of the property. And I kind of echo what you said. You take a little chance if you're buying property and spending your dollar without purchasing title insurance, which is why lenders require title insurance on any finance property.
So when you get a mortgage, they require you to get it?
Yep. If you're borrowing conventional, or you're borrowing money from a conventional lender, they're going to require you to purchase lender's title insurance.
So there's a separation between the two?
There is, that's right. There's a lender's title insurance which insures your lender, or your banker, or your loan officer, or your mortgage company. And then there's owner's title insurance, which insures you. It's an actual policy with your name on it, and so it insures you against any adverse claims moving forward. So if you ever pay off that loan, which in a perfect world, we'd all at some point pay off our mortgage and own our house free and clear, that owner's title insurance policy that you purchased at the closing table still covers you as long as you're the owner of the property.
Got it. So it's a great buy.
It's a great buy.
Got it. So if I were to buy a property from, say, my dad, say it's an investment property I was going to buy from him or anything like that, if he had title insurance on the property and they had the title examined already from a different attorney, why is it important that I get it when I purchase a home a few years later?
Well, lenders are going to require it, number one. So if you're borrowing money to purchase it, there's going to be a lender's policy required because they're not going to rely on your father's title attorney who examined it who knows when.
Right.
Number two, things changed. The prior owner may have purchased the property in year 1. In year 2, 3, and 4, he had 3 different judgments recorded against him. Okay, as a buyer, no offense to your dad, but if your dad's got these 3 judgments and they are liens on the property, you want to know about it. And so, when you go to closing, you want to make sure at that particular point in time that your property is owned free and clear, and the only way is through a title examination and a title policy.
Gotcha. So nobody knows. That previous title attorney could have.
If these judgments are recorded, that previous title attorney could be dead, or he could no longer be in the business, and those judgments weren't recorded at the time that he did his examination. So that's why it's important to have a new policy issued each time ownership is conveyed to the next buyer.
So if the lender requires it, why get another one? Why two separate ones?
There's two separate because there's two separate insureds. So the lender is insured only up to the amount of your loan balance. In other words, the lender wants to make sure, worst case scenario, there was a terrible mistake made, you don't even own the property, the lender can make a claim on that policy and get all of their loan balance back.
Just the balance.
Just the balance.
So to make it simple, $200,000 purchase, $100,000 is put down. I'm only borrowing $100,000. They only require me to insure that $100,000.
That's correct.
Okay.
The owner's title insurance that you'll purchase, where you're the named insured, would insure your equity.
Got it.
But remember, traditionally those loan balances are constantly declining because you're making payments and you're paying down
so
principal.
every month.
So at some point, that 100 becomes 90, becomes 80, becomes 70. Your equity is growing. You want to make sure that you've got owner's title insurance to ensure your growing equity in the property.
So once the home is paid off, and I never bought title insurance, can I buy it after the fact? Or it doesn't have to be paid off. I mean, say I close on the home without it, kind of decide a month later I want to get it.
You can.
Okay.
You'll need a new title examination at that point in time. If it's a couple years down the road, the loan's paid off, you didn't purchase it at the closing where you acquired the property, you'll need to obviously get in touch with me or get in touch with one of us at Cypress Title to do a title exam at that point in time, because we won't know what's happened from the time that we closed it until the time that you're requesting the owner's title insurance. There could be, no offense again, tax liens, judgments,
you never know,
encumbrances, encroachments on the boundary lines.
What's the most common things you see, issues on title? What is the most common thing that comes across on the desk that you notice there's an issue on title?
Successions cause problems.
Okay.
People think because their parents passed away and they were their only three kids that they just own it. They don't realize that a succession needs to be done to convey ownership into the hands of the heirs, to the children.
Okay.
We run across judgments all the time.
And that's someone filing a lien on the property because they probably owe them money for a job they didn't.
It could be, well, those are liens. So those are liens for work that may have been done on the property. But even judgments like, the owner of the home had a credit account at Sears and they didn't pay their credit card bill. And Sears sued the owner in their personal name and got a judgment against them for $10,000. When they record that judgment, that immediately operates as a judicial mortgage on the property, which means that Sears has the rights to that $10,000 out of the sales proceeds of that property.
Got it. So they need to be paid before they can sell, and
correct.
You'll find that
at the same time.
Or at the same time.
Yes. So the title attorney's job, when I examine the title, I see a judgment for Sears, for instance, for $10,000. We pick up the phone and we communicate with Sears or Sears' collection attorney. We find out how much Sears needs to get paid in order to release that judicial mortgage so that I can pass the property to the buyer free and clear.
Got it. I'll tell you something that I come across a lot on the realtor side of the transaction is with condos or associations. It doesn't have to be a condo. It could be a neighborhood. Just as long if you have an HOA, a homeowners association, when you're required to pay that, guys, at the closing table. Yeah, that's the most common one I hear all the time.
Very, very common, yes.
Where if you sign documents saying that you have to pay the HOA fee in your neighborhood, and if you don't, they put a lien on you.
They slap a lien on you.
And you got to pay it at the table.
If you want to sell it, then you're going to have to pay it.
You got to pay it. Got it.
I have to make those phone calls to sellers sometimes, so it's not all fun,
Yeah. So what are the costs involved with the purchase of title insurance?
That's a great question. Title insurance premiums are priced by the Louisiana Department of Insurance. So it's not a price that's set by each individual title company. So Cypress Title doesn't decide how much you pay for your title insurance premium. The Louisiana Department of Insurance decides that. Like we talked about, it is a one-time premium where you pay it at the closing and it covers you for the duration of the time that you own the property. So what that leads me to is that is not a price that you would shop. So if you're closing at Cypress Title or Title Company ABC, the title insurance premium is going to be the same at each of those title companies because it's not optional. We don't decide what those prices are. We can't raise it or lower it even if we'd like to.
Gotcha. So it's a set rate, it's a set fee based on.
You got it.
Okay, good deal. So what happens if my buyer does not purchase title insurance and there's a claim that comes up in that ownership time? What happens?
First of all, shame on your buyer. Second of all, if your buyer did not purchase owner's title insurance, there are claims that can be made against the property that could not have been discovered by an attorney. So not every claim against the property or claim to the property is necessarily attorney malpractice. That being said, if it was attorney malpractice, knock on wood, I have not had one in my career. If there is attorney malpractice involved, attorneys are on the hook for 3 years. It's a peremptory statute of limitations here in Louisiana. So we're on the hook for 3 years. After that, your buyer's going to be on their own. But title insurance covers a myriad of problems that, like misindexed records in the clerk of court, which the title attorney couldn't have discovered, fraud, forgery, missing heirs that weren't identified in the will or identified in a succession, all sorts of encumbrances on the property lines or setback lines or building restrictions. Those are the types of things that could lead to problems with the title, but weren't necessarily through the fault of the title attorney.
Got it. Now, property should increase in value throughout the years. Does the value of the insurance increase as well?
Certain types. That's a yes and no question.
Okay.
Most title companies, including Cypress Title, issue something called an advantage policy or an Eagle policy, depending on the title insurance company that it's written on. But those advantage policies actually have an expandable coverage in them, to where if your property appreciates in value, the policy will appreciate with it and cover that appreciated amount up to 150% over the course of 5 years.
So the policy that y'all sell to the buyer has that advantage policy with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So it's good to know. That's a big difference there.
That's it. And it's included in the title insurance premium. You pay at the closing table with no future payments or anything like that, and you pay it and it's covered.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time today, Bryan.
Got it.
Appreciate it.